Hey everybody, welcome to Kent with Bent number 144. I'm of course here with Bent Hovind, the
Hi,
one.
how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Alright, for some reason I think I still have you as a little bit low. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn on a game thingy, and yeah, then hopefully you'll be louder.
Okay, we'll see.
Yeah. I don't know, for some reason all my audio settings keep just not working anymore. Despite the fact that I haven't changed them, they're just not working. It's great. It's my favorite thing. My absolute favorite. Yeah, it's really bizarre. So,
Oh, look, I have Baja Blast.
well, good. Well, everybody, we are here for Kent with Bet number 144, but there's also a thing. Now, you see with the donations over by Fancy Avatar? Well, as my channel members might have noticed, I did finish a character recently. A character which, believe it or not, I started like a year ago. Yeah, but then it became a lot of work to to finish the retopology. So I kind of just stopped. And then recently I realized that I might have cause to use this avatar or character or whatever you want to call it. So I was like, I should get that done. And then I recently got it done, and now there's a Tholian test as a channel member only video. So if we can get to the fancy avatar number, we can get the Tholian avatar for my next video.
That would be really cool.
It would be really cool.
Oh, really hot, I should say.
Well, yeah, because Tholians are really hot. Um, Secret author of the Voynich manuscript, who's been a member for 28 months and is at the amnial level, says, "Last time I was this early, I was still a humble tetrapodomorph. PD, AIG, roar, or dino roar. I'm going to go ahead and say that looks like, I don't know, some kind of maybe a Celtic language, and I'm going to take a drink for it. So we are on Creation Science Evangelism 103, Class 4, which the topic of that is Satan and his religion to destroy humanity. So, yeah, it's probably going to be terrible. Borg Emporia says Tholian Dapper Dinosaur. Yeah, possibly. If we can get this thing to go at least to the 100 mark. Except it's actually down here. So, let's see. We are. So, in case you're new, this show is basically Bent, Hovind, no relation, and I. No relation between us, and also between Bent Hovind and Kent Hovind, no relation. We take a look at the nonsense of Kent Hovind with the perspective that we were both at one point young Earth creationists and both unironic fans of Mr. Hovind's work.
It's true.
Alex Markle says, hot like on fire or hot as in anime waifu? So it's definitely hot as in fire. As for hot like anime waifu, I will have to let you decide if we get there. So, yeah. Secret author of the Voynich manuscript says, new Voynichese theory, it's a Celtic language. I mean, maybe. I've heard some arguments that it's Chinese, but I think it's actually just a hoax. I don't think there's actually a language. Roshna Uwu Keller for 199 says, strange sexual feelings about the Tholians. Look, that wasn't my goal, but you know what? If it unlocks a new kink, it unlocks a new kink. Whatever. That just means you leveled up. So, what? You level up and unlocked a new kink. It's fine. Nice. Don't worry about it. Yeah, we take a look at Kent Hovind. Today we're doing his Creation Science Evangelism 103. So basically, Creation Science Evangelism was a series of classes that were in-depth dives into what Kent Hovind believes that, according to Kent, were accepted as college credit by some certain Christian universities. Now, I don't know how many of those were actually accredited. I hope none of them, because any accredited institution that accepted this for credit should have that accreditation revoked. So, you know. But anyway, that's how this works. Now we do have a bit of a drinking game. Bent is drinking Baja Blast, I believe. Do you have anything else? Need tea or coffee or anything like that?
I also have water in this mug that says Copper Magma on it, which used to be a band that I was in.
Very cool. All right, well, I have some Shock Top Belgian White. And Asta Mobula Modular equals 666 Ryu for 4.99 says AIG is a sack of the cylindrical organ Dapper apparently thinks levels up when stimulated with a joke. I'll take a drink for that. PhD Tony for $10 due says, if we pay you enough, can you not inflict Kent's smug, sanctimonious sack of shittery on us and just take your word for it? Yes, you can, but that is going to be a substantial amount of money. Basically, you would have to make it so that I no longer have to do things like live streams in order to get enough from this channel, which is possible. It's just a very large sum. For the Alpha and Omega Dog newsletters for $2 says Dwayne Gish Luca, last Universal Common Apologist. Nice. All right, so the way the drinking game works is we take a drink anytime Kent Hovind says something that's so stupid it hurts my brain and I need to just cool my brain off, right? So it's brain coolant, and that's going to be basically whenever my brain is needing that. So that's mostly I call it when I feel like it. But also, we will take a drink if Kent Hovind gets something that is factually correct, and that he's not just reading off of some slide or out of some book or something. If it's actually a factually correct statement from his brain that makes it out of his vocal apparatus and into our ears, we take a drink. We'll also take a drink if Kent Hovind tells a joke that doesn't land or tells a story that didn't happen. So, for instance, if he tries to tell us about the time that he converted the atheist museum docent to Christianity by convincing him of the truth of young earth creationism via a conversation that guy had with his daughter, Marlissa, yeah, that sounds like a thing that didn't happen, so we're going to take a drink for that. Now, it is a judgment call, but basically, if the whole story sounds like something that should be on r/that happened, we're going to take a drink for it. Especially if it ends with, and everybody clapped. That's never what happens. We will also take a drink if Kent Hovind mentions that political party from Germany in the 1930s into the 40s. The one that is the reason that you probably started learning the recorder in school. There's a fun fact for you. Yeah, they're the ones who kind of started the whole recorder in school craze. So, yeah, that's a thing. Now, okay, look, the proximate cause is not because of them. It's just like a long down line chain of cause and effect that eventually leads to one German like school guy who was like, oh, we should use recorders. And yes, it happened to be around that time. So, yeah. Anyway. We'll also take a drink if Kent Hovind says, cites a source, and the source, rather than simply not supporting him, which is always what's going to happen unless it's a creationist source, if it actually actively contradicts him, we take a drink. So, for instance, if Kent Hovind cites, say, the description of Grendel from Beowulf as evidence of T-Rex living in modern times, and then we go check the description of Grendel from Beowulf, and it actually says nothing of the sort, and instead it identifies Grendel with something else entirely, like a descendant of Cain, which is literally what it does. That's called a Trojan source, and we take a drink for that. We will also take a drink if Kent Hovind is able to be predicted by either myself or Ben successfully, when it's not super clear what he's about to say. Also, Asta Mobula for equals 666 Ryu for 199 says the NSDAP started that shitty instrument. No, they did not start it. They merely adopted it. Yeah, basically it was part of a push to increase the knowledge of folk music among German youths. They needed a cheap instrument to teach the kids how to play folk music on. And that was a cheap instrument that was being mass-produced, so they just bought a bunch of them and sent them to schools, and the kids learned how to play recorder. Like, of the things they did, not the worst. Roshna Uwu Keller for $4.99 says, wow, Dapper Dinosaur must really, really hate the recorder to have so much pent-up rage. I really don't. I mean, it's not exactly like, my favorite instrument to listen to when I'm relaxing or anything, but like, whatever. I don't care. Okay, we will also take a drink if Kent Hovind mixes up what we can know about any larger taxon to which Lucy, the Australopithecus afarensis, belongs, including just her species, with what we can know about her species just from her skeleton. So, for instance, if he ignores the fact that we have other skeletons that include additional cranial or sacral material or additional foot material, yeah, we take a drink. That's called an ad hominid. We only get one of those per drink. PhD Tony for $5 redo says, with all these drinking rules, why isn't it called alcohol poisoning the live stream? Because you pace yourself. And then with Rail Gatubella for $2 says, Adgvori Upatsenku Yetorba Cheva. I am going to take a drink. Not sure if I should, but I'm going to. All right. Now, there's a couple ways you guys can help us out with getting a drink in, which are things like if you say AIG is a bag of dicks, we'll take a drink. Now, these drinks I'm taking are not shots, right? I'm having a little gulp of beer, so don't get too excited. We'll also take one if anyone super chats anything that includes the kaiju emojis that we have. That's Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah. We'll also take a drink if anyone gives memberships, or if any of the kaiju, namely Mothra or King Ghidorah, Godzilla, come by audibly. We'll also take a drink. So, yeah, I think that's it. Ben, did I miss any?
Dapper is a professional.
Dapper's a professional. If I screw up the production, I will take a drink. Now, that does not include if something crashes. That's not me screwing up. That's the computer screwing up. Anyway, Bent, are you going to be able to become more ready in the next few minutes?
I'm as ready as I'll ever be.
All right, here we go.
Welcome to CSE 103. This is our Creation Science Evangelism class, so we've already covered much of my videotape seminar on creation, evolution, dinosaurs in the Bible.
Oh, Serbo-Croatian or Croatian. Okay. Here's the fun fact. Serbian and Croatian are basically the same language, but for political reasons, we like to pretend that they're not, even though they're basically just dialects of each other. Same thing with, like, what is it? Punjabi and Urdu. They're basically the same language. They're mutually intelligible. But for political reasons, they're totally different languages, you guys. Don't worry.
I taught school 15 years. I don't think I ever taught a class sitting down. This will be my first. You're going to need to sit down for this one. If you're watching this on videotape, this will...
Bent, are you sitting down?
I am sitting down, and I'm so relieved.
All right. Everybody in the audience, make sure you're sitting down for this. No, like, standing up cooking or anything. Be sitting down.
No lying down.
No lying down. Sitting. Sit. Yeah.
will be very politically incorrect.
Oh, no. Ken saying that he's going to be politically incorrect it bodes poorly. He's already... we're just gonna keep going. But Savage Blueberry Chromosome Crumble Oprah for $4.99 says AIG is a bag of vaguely recorder-shaped dangly bits. Thank you very much. We'll take a drink.
We're going to cover how the theory of evolution ties in with communism, Marxism, Nazism, racism.
Well, he did it. Take a drink.
The New World Order coming soon to a city near you.
Oh, good.
We will discuss some things that I'm sure some people will get upset about.
Okay. How long until what he says just comes down to blaming the Jews?
That is a really good question.
I'm thinking pretty soon. I'm thinking pretty soon it's going to come down to just the Jews, even though he's probably not going to say it that bluntly.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay. Roshina ooh Keller for $1.99 says also Spanish and Catalan. Okay, I'm not super familiar with Catalan, but from having read a little bit of it, mostly because every once in a great while the Catalan Wikipedia is better than the English Wikipedia and better than the Spanish Wikipedia for some reason, I'm less confident that those should be treated as separate languages. Although I understand why Catalonian nationalists would want them to, so certainly some of the degree to which we consider them different is also political. But yeah, I don't know. How mutually intelligible are like Castilian Spanish and Catalan? Let me know if you're familiar with both languages.
Feel free to call me. I try to document everything I say. I have read mountains of books on this topic.
I am not telling you to call Kent Hovind. What I am telling you is that Kent Hovind said that you should feel free to call him. I'm not telling you to do that, though.
So this ought to be very interesting on what's coming soon. People are nervous. What's going on in the world? You know, it just seems like there's a race toward a one world government.
Does it? Because I don't see that, right? Like, okay, international cooperation, sure, but one of the whole points of the United Nations is to ensure member states maintain their sovereignty, right? Like, that's a stated goal of the UN, is to respect the sovereignty of member states. And sovereignty means that ultimately no one else can tell you what to do. I mean, there's wars, so sure they can. But the basic idea is supposed to be that a sovereign state doesn't actually have any higher authority over it. Outside of just force, right? And so, it seems to me like things like the United Nations are actually pointing away from a one world government. But also, one of the weird things is like, you realize that the only reason that Kent Hovind seems to think a one world government is bad is because he thinks of it in terms of his weird made up version of biblical prophecy. Like, if you think about, like,
Right.
what's the right size for sovereign entities on this planet? There's no one answer. There's no right answer to that. It's like asking which side is the right side to drive on. There's no right answer. There's the answer. You need an answer, but there's, like, the other one isn't wrong. It's just different. Like, should the United States be as big as it is? I can think of really good arguments for why not. I can also think of good arguments for why it should be. Whatever. Let's see. Roshina Uwu Keller for 199 says, "Call me if you want a Nazi friend, Kent." Oof. Yeah. Although I'm sure he denied. My finished journey for $6.66 says, "Hail Nero, hail Daps and Bent, and hail real science. Paying bills as I listen, but I will not attempt to keep up with the drink counter." Well, that's probably a good thing if you're currently doing financial stuff. My finished journey, oh no, just did that one. Asta Modular, there we go, equals 666 for you for 499 says, "If I recall correctly, Catalan is further from Spanish than, say, Arabic dialects are. That being said, Yanal, hello for linguists." I mean, it's really that far from Spanish? I don't know. I really don't know enough about Catalan. But my entire exposure to Catalan is knowledge of Catalan separatism. One professor I had once from Spain who talked about working in Catalonia, and also reading a few Wikipedia articles in the language, because I can puzzle through most Romance languages if it's writing about something I'm vaguely familiar with. So that's like it. So I wouldn't know. Savage Blueberry Chromosome Crumble Cobra for 199 says, "X to doubt Kent's capacity to read books." Yes, Kent does seem to be largely functionally illiterate. Rayo Gatubello for $2 says, "The NWO is bad. Hogan and his friends killed WCW." Maybe everything really does come down to just professional wrestling. Secret author of the Voynich manuscript for 200 Argentinian peso says, "Catalan and Castilian can be mutually intelligible, but some vocabulary is a lot closer to French. Grammar is very similar. So speaking slowly with hand gestures and synonyms, it isn't too hard to understand each other." Well, then, if that's the case, I'd probably still put it as a separate language and not as the same language. Although, here's the real thing, right? Different languages and dialects versus language, it's the same thing as like species and subspecies. It's arbitrary. There's no right answer. Is Arabic one language? Not by most definitions, but by some definitions it is. So whatever. All right, here we go.
Well, the Bible predicted this would happen.
No, it didn't. No, it didn't. Look, here's the thing. There are no end-time predictions in the Bible. The things you think are end-time predictions are actually allegorical statements about what was going on at the time of the author. The book of Daniel is about historical events that took place from basically the time of the return from exile and before, and then when it gets after that, it starts to become wildly inaccurate. Because it was written around the time just after, most likely, the return of the Hebrews from exile in Babylon. And when I say the return of them, I mean the return of, like, the people who had been taken captive, which was far from all of them, which is why they returned to a country that wasn't just completely empty, you know. And Vestigial Bangs Gladstone with... That's your fifth super... That doesn't seem right, but hey, whatever. Fifth super chat for $5. It says, AIG is a bag of one-eyed, moisture-guided, heat-seeking custard chuckers. Oh, that is very descriptive, and we'll take a drink. Similarly, the Book of Revelation is primarily about the Neronian persecution, and it is an exhortation to Christians to remain faithful through the persecution, because there was a lot of very obvious pressure to abandon Christianity from the Romans, because it was one of the quick ways to get yourself out of persecution was to simply sacrifice to the emperor, thereby denouncing the Christian religion, which said that wasn't okay. Yeah, there just are no end-time predictions in the Bible. Nothing in the Bible is about that. If you think it is, you're just wrong. And ultimately, I'm with those, like, 2nd and 3rd century Eastern Church fathers who were like, maybe we shouldn't have Revelation in the Bible. Yeah, those guys were right. Sorry, Athanasius. But, I think you got it wrong in your festal letter that spelled out the 27-book canon of the New Testament. Yeah, you got that one wrong. Shouldn't have put that in there. But, I suspect he put it in there because he found it useful for himself and his political aims. So, whatever. But yeah, in case you didn't know, for the first few centuries, most Christians were kind of iffy on the book of Revelation and whether or not it counted as scripture.
2,000 years ago, and it's happening. We are seeing it now. What we're going to try to cover in this class is what's going on, give you a little historical perspective, and then tell you what you should do about it. Yes, we have a new world order coming. It's going to be evil. It's going to be wicked. Christians are going to be persecuted and killed.
Why? No, that's not going to be a thing. Look, if you want to go look at Christians being persecuted and killed, there are plenty of places around the world. I talk about it all the time. Go work on that, right? Go collect money to send to Christians in places like the Middle East, or unsanctioned churches in places like China, right? Because there are sanctioned churches in China, but they're under the thumb of the government, so I can see why people would rather have an unsanctioned church. But anyway, go do that. Stop worrying that the shadowy they, the globalists, the elite, or whatever other pseudonym you have for when you're trying to say Jew but not actually say Jew, instead of worrying about them, because they're basically not real, go worry about the actual Christians under actual persecution right now. Because whatever you think about the truth or falsity of Christianity, whatever you think about the history of it as a religion and what it has done or hasn't done to, other groups and what influence it's had on society, there are actual people currently being oppressed right now simply on the grounds of their religious identity. And some of them are Christians. And that's a thing you could work on. You could help with that, Kent, but he doesn't. Instead, what he wants to focus on is imaginary present and future persecution of Christians that isn't happening, and there's no good reason to think it was going to happen. Roshna Ubu Keller for $4.99 says the second coming of Jesus wasn't about the resurrection. Okay, so I will say, I suppose that the predictions of the Parousia were probably not about present day stuff, but then also remember that according to Jesus and at least in most places, it seems like according to Paul, the expected Parousia was supposed to be happening in like decades, not centuries or millennia. So, Savage, Blueberry, Chromosome, Crumble, Cobra for $1.99 says, our / persecution fetish. Exactly. Kent really, really, really wants to be oppressed. And I've said it before, but he can just hire someone for that, right? There are people that will they'll oppress him as much as he wants. He can get through that persecution fetish just fine. Just hire someone. It might be a little on the expensive side, but I hear he makes pretty good money from his grift. So yeah. Of course, actually I have good reason to think that he might have already done that with his former tech guy Steve.
It's coming. What should we do about it? You folks in the military are going to be required to do things that you shouldn't do. What's your decision going to be?
I mean, technically that is true. I was required to do things I shouldn't have done, and I did do them, but it wasn't persecuting Christians. So,
I would agree with my experience too.
Yeah, although I will say, I do think that if the military was forced to just start persecuting Christians, I think a large portion of them would just go along with it. Because I'm very skeptical of the ability of most military members to actually reject unlawful orders. Because having been in, they say it's something you're not just allowed to do, but supposed to do.
That's not easy to do.
No, it's not. It's much easier to just follow the orders. In fact, you're mostly conditioned to just follow orders unquestioningly. Jake, insert clever dapper inside joke here. Nelson for $5 says, fandom is a thing. This is true. It is a thing. And hey, we got to 69 in donations. $69. Nice.
Nice.
All right, here we go.
So, let's get started here. Evolution, Satan's religion
Just take a drink.
to destroy humanity. During the Civil War, a fellow decided he did not want to get involved in the war.
Okay.
The battlefield was moving his way, the battle was, and so he didn't want to get involved. So the guy put on a Yankee coat and rebel pants.
This is a story that didn't happen. I'm just going to take a drink. Because, of course, if you don't want to be involved in a battle, and you're not currently in either army, you don't put on half uniforms. You just leave. Like, it's not like these people were approaching this battlefield in, like, motorized vehicles. They were marching. Just march orthogonal to the direction they're marching. That's it. It's like in Prometheus. Just run to the side. That's all you have to do. Run to the side and you'll be safe. Roshana Ooh Keller for $4.99 says, speaking of persecution fetishes, Ken's stream today was about the need to tithe. I mean, let me guess. He pointed out that no matter where you go to church, his ministry is an acceptable place to tithe. You don't have to worry about giving to your local church that might be doing things like, you know, helping to support a local food bank or anything. Nope. Give it to Kent so that he can lie to children and then maybe let them drown. Jake, insert clever dapper dinosaur joke, or sorry, inside joke here. Nelson for $2 says, was supposed to be a fin dog. I mean, it's a good gig if you can get it, right? I guess wait, does that technically make Kent a fin dog? Ugh. I don't want to think about that too much. All right, I'm going to hit play before I actually start thinking about that.
And decided now nobody will bother me. They'll think, you know, I'm on both sides. Well, after the war, after the battle, he was found dead with his Yankee coat full of rebel bullets and his rebel pants full of Yankee bullets. You better get on one side or the other because somebody's going to lose, right? So
this is in contrast to what creationists usually say, because obviously he's talking about Christianity and he's talking about evolution as being the religion of Satan and you got to choose one. Spoiler, you can choose neither because there are a whole lot of other religions out there. Also, evolution isn't a religion, but additional spoiler, you can be a Christian and accept evolution, and most creationists, even the professionals, will at least pay lip service to this idea. So, like, you listen to, like, Ken Ham, and he's not saying that we should, like, excommunicate, not that he has the power to excommunicate anyone. He's just saying we should excommunicate all the theistic evolutionists. He's not. He's saying, I think they're misguided, but I think they're Christians. He says, I think they're, you know, negating a big basis for why the gospel is coherent, but he still thinks they're Christians and that they can be saved and what. But Kent is apparently just coming mask off with this one, saying, nope, you gotta pick. It's evolution or Jesus. Which, first of all, I don't think you do have to pick, but I gotta say, when it comes down to things like evidence, there's a whole lot more evidence for evolution than there is for anything to do with Jesus. And I say that as someone who is pretty staunchly opposed to most versions of mythicism because they're all very, 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 very silly. So, yeah.
we're going to try to give you the big picture here. About 6,000 years ago, 4,000 BC roughly, God created everything in 6 days. That means he owns it. He's the boss. He's the master. Within the first few...
Actually, I don't think that follows, although that is certainly a claim that you can pull out of the Bible, so, like, whatever. But just because you make something does not necessarily mean that you're in charge of it. For instance, if you release something into the Creative Commons or the public domain or something, like Kent has done with his videos many times, where he said, I don't copyright my videos, you can take them and do whatever you want with them, which is something he has said many, many times. That is Kent telling you that he is not the master and in charge of his videos, and you can do what you want with them. So, no, it does not simply follow that if you create something, you are there for its owner and, you know, in charge of it forever. It might mean that. It could mean that. It doesn't actually follow, though.
200 years, Satan fell from heaven, apparently.
Something it doesn't say anywhere in the Bible. So, we get this from a combination of a few things. One is, in Revelation, we have this scene where a third of the stars fall from heaven at basically because of the great beast, which is sometimes identified as Satan, even though it doesn't actually ever say that it's Satan. In fact, if you read through the Revelation of St. John, the image of the great beast is actually more tightly tied to Leviathan from the Old Testament, where you can find in the Psalms as well as in Job, which is depicted both biblically as well as outside of the Bible in places like the Ugaritic texts, as a multi-headed serpent from the sea. Where does the beast with 7 heads come from in Revelation? From the sea. And its designation in Revelation as an ancient twisting serpent is also identical to it being called a twisting serpent in both Psalms as well as in Ugaritic texts. So what John is actually doing is pulling on themes of Leviathan and comparing Leviathan, the ancient chaos serpent of ancient Near East myth, with the Roman Empire coming out of the sea. Because how did the Romans get around to places? Right, on boats. Got it. I mean, they had roads too, but if you were going from Rome to Judea, probably took a boat. And that's the actual connection there. And then the whole fall of Satan is taken from basically a bit in, I can't remember now, was it like Chronicles or something? But anyway, it's a passage in which a prophet is talking about a king and ironically identifying him with a god that his culture was familiar with and pointing out how he was going to fall from favor. And so nowhere in the Bible does it actually talk about the fall of Satan from heaven, dragging down a third of the angels. Like, that's all stuff that was made up in the Middle Ages. But that's not in the Bible anywhere. You have to come up with extra stuff, shove it in the Bible. Which is interesting because Kent claims to be a sola scriptura believer, which basically means he doesn't believe, he believes that the Bible is the only reliable and authoritative text for gaining theology. And yet he will shove all sorts of nonsense into the Bible that just isn't there, right? Like just the existence of Satan as a particular individual entity, name that, is only barely something you can find in the New Testament. And nowhere does it talk about a fall from heaven or anything like that. Roshna, ooh, Keller from 199 says, also, Kent is really into the books of Enoch. Wait, is he? It seems plausible. But I don't remember him talking about that a whole lot. But, I mean, look, there's so much Kent stuff that, like, I don't know all of it.
The reason we say within 100 years is because Adam was 130 when Seth was born. That's the first really date we have to go by. Before that, they had Cain and Abel. No dates are given. Before that, they were kicked out of the garden. And they were kicked out of the garden because Lucifer had deceived them, and talked them into eating the fruit and all that stuff.
Nowhere in the Bible is a snake in the Garden of Eden identified as Satan. So, take a drink for that. Also, I'm going to point out that snake, quote-unquote, tricked them into eating the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil by just telling them the truth. Everything that snake said was true. They didn't die. They did gain the knowledge. It did become like God, as God confirms later on in that same book. Yeah. And so, yet nowhere is the snake identified with Satan. In fact, the actual story there is probably just an etiology. For one, why humans have some divine characteristics, but not all of them. And two, why snakes ain't got no legs. Savage Blueberry Chromosome Crumble Cobra for $4.99 says, Kent gives me the inclination to forcefully introduce my hardcover copy of the Battle Cry of Freedom to his noggin. It's not a small... Well, I do not advocate for any violence against Kent Hovind. That is not okay. I don't even advocate that you call him, even though he seems to advocate that you call him. What are you smirking at, Bent?
I was about to say that very same thing.
Okay. I thought you were saying that... I thought you were trying to imply that I was being less than honest.
No.
Okay.
I thought of the same thing you just said about calling Kent.
But there is some bad news, everybody, which is that we have 136 people watching, but only 62 likes, which means that I have to say that, unfortunately, I like less than half of you, half as well as you deserve. So hit like, unless you like getting bilboed. That's what we call that here. We call that getting bilboed.
You've been bilboed. Yeah,
you've been bilboed. And I've had some people like, where is that in The Hobbit? It's in The Lord of the Rings. Bilbo's a character in that. He's not just in The Hobbit. The Lord of the Rings opens with his 111st birthday party.
Actually, he deceived Eve. Adam purposely ate the fruit.
I would love to ask Kent, what specifically is the deception? Like, specifically what thing that the serpent said wasn't true? Like, very specifically. Because God confirms essentially everything that the serpent says in, like, the next few verses. So, yeah.
To save his wife. Bible tells us that in 1 Timothy. So, Lucifer probably fell from heaven about 100 years after the creation. We know he hadn't fallen during the first week or after.
Wow, That is quite the inference from several stories, none of which are about Satan. That is amazing. I'm going to take a drink. Remember that whole bit about, it's actually in Revelation, about not adding to or subtracting from the words of the Lord and whatnot? And that most Christians, for some reason, seem to think that's about the canon, even though it's probably just about that one book.
I remember that,
yeah. I feel like Kent's in trouble on that one, because he is adding a whole lot of stuff that's not in the Bible and saying this is just what the Bible means. I don't think I've ever made that much fan fiction for anything. But then again, I'm not a fan fiction author, so. Roshna Uwu Keller for $4.99 says AIG is a bag of objects that can assist in getting built out. And then Jake insert clever dapper inside joke here. Nelson for $2 says, glad to see you back and healthy, Bent. Yeah, Bent, you've been having some days of feeling under the weather, huh?
Yeah, I get sick sometimes, and no one knows why.
Not even
the doctors don't know.
Yeah, it's true.
So, what are they gonna do?
But at least you're not an old man with dementia wandering off at a wedding.
Exactly.
For the first week, because if you look at Genesis 1:31, at the end of chapter 1, God looked at everything, said it's very good. It was not very good if Satan had fallen from heaven and is running around as a bad guy. Plus, there'd be no possible way God could say, Adam, you have dominion over the earth, if Lucifer already had dominion over the earth.
So, hold on. So is God saying that he gave Adam dominion over the earth, but then Lucifer fell, and then usually the story is that he was given dominion over the earth. So then God was like, okay, Adam, we gotta talk. So I know I said I gave you dominion over the earth, right? Like, I did say that. But there's this other guy, his name's Lucifer. I might have promised him that too. So, like, he's got it now. I know, I said you had it, but that was kind of a goof. Gotcha! Is that a conversation that Kent imagines God having with Adam?
I don't know if he thinks of it that way, but maybe.
Because, it seems like that would be the implication. That God at some point would probably have to come to Adam and be like, okay, so about the whole Dominion thing, there's been an update. Here's the new deal. Savage Blueberry Chromosome Crumble Cobra for $4.99 says, Kent's video production choices look like a commercial for a shady used car dealer circa 1994. You're probably not very far off, but mostly because of limited technology at the time. Secret author of the Voynich manuscript for 100 Argentinian peso says, Bent, could it be that your chakras are misaligned? Or is there no relation? Yeah, Bent, when was the last time you worked on your chakras?
It's been a while.
Okay, well, maybe...
So, anything is possible.
Maybe you should do the Aang thing and find a series of, like, pawns that have a bunch of gunk between them, blocking the flow between them, and unblock it, and thereby metaphorically unblock your chakras, allowing you better bending abilities.
Yeah, maybe I'll do that.
Okay, but you gotta find an old man first who tells you how to do it.
Maybe I'll do that.
Okay, alright. Start looking for old men near pawns.
I might do that.
It's gonna be really tough to do here in southern Arizona.
Tough,
yeah, we don't have a whole lot of ponds out here.
Yeah.
Maybe a water feature in a backyard might work. Okay, here we go.
Plus, we know from Ezekiel 28, Lucifer was in Eden until...
Okay, thanks, Kent. It was Ezekiel. I couldn't remember. Fair enough.
iniquity was found in him. So those...
No, again, that was a king. In fact, if you read earlier in Ezekiel, it tells you what king it is. It gives you his name. And then Ezekiel continues to talk about the king, calling him Lucifer, the morning star, or light bearer. In Hebrew, it's obviously not Lucifer, because that's a Latinization. But whatever. Like, it's... You have to ignore the actual context of the verse in order to come to the conclusion that's about anything other than a human king. Which you can do, I suppose, but at that point, you're definitely not doing the sola scriptura thing. You're bringing in additional extra-biblical traditions that you have chosen to accept from some tradition. Which I'm not going to tell you can't do, right? Like, whatever, it's your Bible to read. But if you're going to tell me that that is actually what the Bible says, and you're going to tell me that you're doing the whole sola scriptura thing, well, no. No, you're not, and no, it doesn't. Jake, insert clever Dapper inside joke here, Nelson. For $5 says, Dapper makes God and Adam sound like the U.S. government and Native Americans. Oof. Oof. That's rough. Yeah. Yeah, that is there is a bit of a similarity. in how those two entities interacted, huh? All right. Well, right now we are not on pace for the Tholian Dapper, but it could still happen.
Those are the different clues you can put together and come up with a date of about 100 years after creation, when Lucifer decided to rebel. And we'll get into more of that in a minute. So Lucifer wants to be God. And what we're going to discuss in
Also something that's nowhere in the Bible, but okay.
this class, for the next many classes probably, is Satan's attempt to create a one-world government, a new world order, coming
great.
soon. So let's try to...
Ken, you said that like 30 years ago. What is soon to you? Like, at some point, Ken, you have to say, okay, maybe I was wrong that it was coming. Because I don't think we're any closer to one world government here in 2024 than we were in like 1994 or whatever when this was filmed.
It doesn't seem like it.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, we might be less close to a one world government. I mean, certainly the United States isn't helping out with just going to war randomly with all sorts of places. Asta Mobular 6 equals 666 Ryu for 199 says, what's the topic of this lecture supposed to be? It is Satan and his religion to destroy humanity. That is the official topic of this, according to the video that I downloaded in order to get this. So, yeah.
To put it in perspective here, it appears that Satan wants to do at least three things on this planet. Number one,
I don't know what gave him this appearance, but Naramdaplitz for $2 says soon. You know, like when Jesus is coming. All right. I mean, yeah. I guess if we're going on like the basis of the parousia as like what counts as soon, then sure, Kent could very well be right. This is quote unquote coming soon.
he wants to make mankind wicked, so God will have to destroy them. Satan knows God cannot tolerate sin, and so he's going to try to make everybody wicked and vile, and then God will have to kill them, which is what happened in the flood in the days of Noah.
Okay, this is something Kent says a lot, and it's that he wants humans to be dead, but I don't know why. What does Satan get out of killing people? Or getting God to kill people? Or whatever it is? Like, what benefit does Satan receive when people die?
I've never understood that.
Yeah.
I don't know why Kent thinks like that. It doesn't make sense to me.
Like, I guess I can see, like, spreading wickedness, but Kent always seems to go to this, he wants everyone dead, and I just don't get why.
Yeah, like Satan wants humans to go extinct or something like that. Like, that's not happening. There's 8 billion of us.
Yeah, I mean, he's doing a really, really crappy job of getting rid of all the humans. Yeah.
Evolution isn't working if it's supposed to kill all of us.
Yeah, that's one of those things with all those population control conspiracy theories. It's like, well, they're doing a really crap job of keeping the population under control. Alex Markle, who's been a member for 19 months, says, Dapper, the U.S. doesn't wage war. That's what other countries are for. I mean, not officially, because I believe World War II is still the last time the United States actually declared war formally by act of Congress. Instead, now the president just sends troops places, and it's not officially a war. Don't worry about it. Okay, I guess that doesn't make any sense, but sure. Man, this would be a very different country if they let me on the Supreme Court. Very, very, very different country.
Second thing he wants to do, he wants to make as many men destroy other men.
Women, you're good. Don't worry about it. Okay, it says mankind. He probably means men in the generic human sense. But Roshna Uwu Keller just gifted 10 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. Thank you very much. And then, right after that, Renee Reptile Egg Crumble for $10 says, for the Tholian Dapper! So that also was accompanied by a Ghidorah and a Godzilla, which means we have, let's see, 11 drinks. So, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Need to take a quick break. Okay, 8, 9, 10, and 11. That's a lot. Ooh, that was okay. Here we go.
If he can put it into the head of one fella, hey, I want you to kill everybody else so you can have the whole planet. or so you can have all the gold, or so you can have all the whatever, you know?
What are you going to do with any of those things if you're literally the last guy standing? Like, think about that, Kent. Hey, Kent, if you were literally the last human on Earth, you could own all the gold.
Yay! Now I have all the gold, and I'm going to use it for nothing.
Exactly. What are you going to do with it? Ben, you would technically be the ruler of the whole planet. Of no one.
Nice. And everyone will have to listen to me.
Well, except there's no one.
All 0 people.
Yeah. Like, that's one of those things. It's like, very few villains in history have actually wanted to kill everyone. Because then what do you do now? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. My Unfinished Journey says, Dapper, you're not supposed to question the lore or pay attention to the man behind the curtain. It's a good point. How dare I try to pay attention to the Kent lore? Which I'm not calling biblical lore. Because remember, Kent's about as bad at the Bible as he is at anything else. Like, Kent is atrocious at knowing things about the Bible. That's the modular for equals 666, Ryu. 499. Got it. Says, we've been at war for 85 years, but sure, Mr. POTUS. Me shortly before getting defenestrated. Yeah, basically, the United States has almost never been at quote-unquote peace. It's like, the idea of being at peace is responded to by the U.S. with, like, that Black Panther meme. We don't do that here. It's like, yep, peace, no. Roshina Uwu Keller for 199 says, gold has fun electrical and chemical properties. Well, there you go, Ben. That's what you do with all the gold. I mean, I'm sure you'll be able to fabricate electronics by yourself on an empty planet, right?
Who's to say I wouldn't?
I mean, I might, because
You wouldn't be around anymore.
Well, that's true, but I'm currently saying I don't think you could do much with that because
Yeah, I don't think I could either.
I mean, quite frankly, I'm familiar with your level of competence when it comes to electrical theory. It's not
very good.
It's higher than just any random Joe off the street.
Yeah,
but not by that much.
Not by as much as it should be based on how much I was educated.
Right. You brain dumped a lot of it, and that's okay.
I brain dumped a lot of it. And I moved on to other things that I enjoy more.
Yeah, I do remember not that long ago having to explain why three-phase AC motors have more consistent torque than one-phase AC motors.
If people kill people, this ties right into Satan's plan also. And so he's working very hard to accomplish that goal. Third thing he seems to be doing, he wants to keep as many people as possible from hearing the gospel.
See, at least that bit I understand internally, right? Because if Satan is God's enemy and God wants everyone to hear the gospel, okay, keep those are at odds things, right? Okay.
I feel like almost everyone has heard the gospel, though.
I mean...
So, like, I don't think Satan did a very good job.
Well, let's find out. We'll do a poll. All right, we're going to start a poll. Have you heard the gospel? Yes. We'll have no. Satan got to me first. And Turtle. Okay, everybody, vote in the poll. Have you heard the gospel? The answers are yes, no, Satan got to me first, and Turtle. Don't disappoint me. Make sure you vote. If you don't vote, then you are not a patriot. Instead, you're I don't know, who are the Patriots' rivals?
I don't know.
You're a...
Bills?
You're a Bill. There you go. You're a Bill.
The Dolphins?
The Dolphins don't have a rival. They suck too much.
Not anymore.
Okay, fine. Maybe they don't.
I don't know. Maybe they do again.
I haven't been keeping track for a very long time. Well, yeah, it's fair enough.
This would be where repressive regimes like communism come in, where you simply never get an opportunity to hear the gospel.
Okay. I'm not going to argue that communist regimes have not, by and large, been repressive, but communism is a political and economic ideology. It's not a regime. Regime refers to the current actual governing group of a country, and it usually implies that that group is in some way nefarious or undemocratic. Okay? Communism isn't a regime. Regimes can be communist, but communism isn't a regime. This is just some basic English that we're going through here. So communism isn't a regime. You could call it a repressive ideology, And then you would probably have to get into an argument with, Marxists about whether or not communism and practice in various countries that say they're communist is actually really communism. Because remember, whenever a country that says it's communist starts going badly, everyone says, well, it wasn't real communism. Okay, whatever. I don't really care. I don't have a dog in that fight. I don't consider myself a Marxist or anything. Whatever. I think Marx was right about some things, and he was very obviously wrong about other things. I don't know. I generally think Marx was pretty good when he was identifying which groups are mistreating other groups and which groups have power in the societies of his day. I think he was significantly less good at historical prognostication and economics. But he wasn't completely wrong about his historical prognostication. Some things like public transit and public schools came true. So, I mean, I don't know. I guess I give him like a 4 out of 10 in terms of prognosticationism. I don't know. Who cares? Now I'm going to get all like the left people against me, and then all the right people are going to be upset when I don't start, campaigning for Trump or something. Hey, you know what? If everyone hates me, I must be doing something right, at least according to Kent, who says that if no one's annoyed with you, you're not being a good Christian. I must not be doing a good YouTube if not everyone is annoyed at me.
Because, it's banned in your country. So those type of...
Very few communist countries have ever actually banned Christianity. I do believe one actually did, if I remember correctly, but I actually also might not remember correctly. Let's remember that the reason that some people have erroneously said that Stalin was made a saint by the Russian Orthodox Church is because he appears holding churches in icons in certain Russian Orthodox churches. Now, being in an icon doesn't make you a saint. In fact, many non-saints are depicted in Russian Orthodox icons. But, the communist government of the Soviet Union built churches. That's why Stalin is depicted holding churches. It's because it was his government that built the church you're in. You don't build a church for the Russian Orthodox Church if you've banned the Russian Orthodox Church. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Although, then again, I will say that the United States federal government did try to ban cocaine, and also the CIA was one of the major cocaine suppliers to the United States in the 80s. So, maybe it does make sense. I don't know. Who knows? You know what? This is why I don't talk about politics much. Roshna Keller for $4.99 says, do spelling errors count as dapper as a professional? I don't know. That's a good question. What did I spell incorrectly? Because look, I definitely make spelling errors. I am not a perfect speller. I am not going to be the guy who went and won the spelling bee. That's not me. Nope. Actually, I threw spelling bees because I did not want to go to the championships because it was described to me. It was like, yeah, you could go to the regional championship and then it'll be Saturday, whatever. I'm like, hold up. You want me to go spell words on a Saturday? Absolutely not.
Not a chance.
That is
the same thing.
The same thing actually happened with a science fair. They were like, yeah, you could go to the regional science fairs. You could give your presentation in front of a whole group of people on Sunday, whatever. And I'm like, no, I barely want to do this in the first place. I don't want to go do it again. I'm out. The kilograms, half dinosaur for $1.99 says, Dapper wearing capitalist shirt with communist pants. The thing is, I don't actually consider myself to fall under either of those labels. Very obviously, the economic systems of the Soviet Union and Maoist China obviously didn't work. It's very clear that didn't work. On the other hand, it's also very clear that whatever we're doing now has some pretty serious flaws. So, do I have a solution for that? No. Do I have minor fixes for minor things that I think might be a good idea that could improve things? Yes. Am I going to talk about them on this channel? Probably not, because I don't think anyone comes here for hey, Dapper, what do you think the marginal tax rate on capital gains should be? No. Lady Novelist, simulated AIG's a romantic horror. Oh, no. For $5 says, if communism is a red herring, is regime a blue mackerel? Yes. I'm going to go with yes on that one. All right, here we go. Here's some more Kents.
Repressive regimes are part of Satan's plan to keep people from hearing the gospel. Satan has used all kinds of different methods and people to accomplish his goals. As you read through Scripture, you'll see different times where there were attempts to make a one-world government or a new world order.
In the Bible, Where? What? Who in the Bible wanted to make a one world order? I mean, I guess you could argue that maybe the Romans wanted to conquer the world, but like they didn't. And really, they only kind of tried. Like there were big periods in Roman history where there weren't a whole lot of like expansionist campaigns. And at a certain point, a lot of the so-called expansionist campaigns were less about gaining new territory and more about just looting places for money. Because the Roman emperor was in charge of basically feeding Rome, and the way that they fed Rome was basically just by buying food from outside Rome. And if you want to buy food from outside Rome, you're going to need money. And a quick way to get money is to just take someone else's money by force. That's a lot of what those campaigns were really about, was just going in, grabbing some loot, going back to Rome, and buying just a whole bunch of bread and giving it to the Romans. Because, to a large extent, eventually, a big function of the Roman Empire became just, like, to support the Roman citizenry as a welfare state. But not by, like, encouraging, like, farming and industry in any significant way. Just kind of by, like, conquering other people, taking their money, and then using it to buy bread that was already going to be made anyway, but maybe not sold to the people of Rome. Whatever. Command Cyborg, who's been a member for 42 months, says, the religion of Satan eating Seitan wrapped in satin. Seems Snake was right. I guess people would guess this was a build-up for to AIG being a carrier of Richards. Well, maybe not, but they are. Godzilla, and I will take a drink for that. Thank you very much. And then Roshina Uwu Keller from 199 says, you misspelled gospel in the pill. Wait, what? I don't know.
In the poll?
Oh, in the poll? Oh, did I?
Too many L's.
I did. I spelled it like it's a spell. Okay, that's a good. Yeah, sure, we'll take a drink for that. Gapper's a professional. There we go. Let's see. I'm going to get a little bit more Kent in, and then we're going to take a break, and we are just barely on pace for that Tholian and Dapper, which also means we're close to on pace for Bent Gets Free Pizza. Because those numbers are very similar to each other. Free pizza.
Wow, that would be great.
It would be great. You could either get it today or at a later date of your choosing.
Wow. Both today and a later date of my choosing. That's
no,
amazing.
It's either or. It's not both
I
and.
believe both would be available. That's cool.
Not available.
And we'll get into lots more on that, hopefully, as the class progresses. If he knew if he could make man think he was God, then that would create some real serious problems. Because if there is no God to tell us what to do, if man is God, then how do you decide right from wrong?
I don't know, the same way God does, I guess. Like, if you're literally God, then you get to decide right and wrong the same way God does. But just deciding. But we are going to end this poll right here. And let's see. Also, Joshua Geese just gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. I'm going to take those drinks after we come back from a quick break to get myself a new beer, because I'm out now. So thank you very much. Let's up that counter there. Let's see. Let's take a look at the poll. So the poll, where did it give its results? Am I missing it? Oh, here it is. Okay. Have you heard of the gospel incorrectly spelled? Yes, 60%. Turtle, 33%. No, Satan got to me first, 6%. So apparently, Satan is also doing a really crappy job of keeping people from hearing the gospel. I mean, Ken sure seems to be really concerned with what Satan's up to, but so far, dude seems really, really bad at his job. Like maybe the forces of evil should, like, I don't know, like do a coup and get a better Prince of Darkness, because this guy is really, really crappy at it, from what I can tell. I don't know. What do you think, Ben? Do you think that Satan's doing a good job, according to Kent?
Maybe Satan's biding his time, waiting for this evolution fad to wear off. I don't know.
He kind of got tired of the whole evolution thing. Yeah, maybe. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to listen to, well, you guys are going to listen to some Beethoven original music. And while we do that, I'm going to get myself a brand new cold beer. And we will be right back. We'll take those 5 drinks for Joshua Geese. I'll give my quick, after the break, talk about how you can help the channel out. And then we will be right back to Kent. So enjoy the intermission, everybody. And we are back. Welcome back, everyone. Those of you who stuck with me, which was almost everyone, so thank you very much. I do appreciate that. Here are the 5 drinks, real quick. 1, 2. Ooh, it's much better cold. 3, 4, and 5. Also, you know, beer is in contention for the oldest non-water beverage in human history.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's that and milk. They're it's hard to say which one came first. So, but yeah, right up there. All right, so we're back. I'm going to give a quick little chat about supporting the channel if you want to. So you probably know this, but this channel is almost entirely supported directly through the generosity of my viewers. You guys are the reason that basically this channel can do 3 videos a week, more than that, in terms of early access. We are currently at the point now where I think I'm about 6 months ahead on early access. So I'm hoping to have a video out this week that probably will not come out until like a few months into 2025. So that is because you guys are supporting me, whether it be through super chats, super thanks, super stickers, gifted memberships, whatever. If you are currently someone who is not supporting financially, but you are interested in doing so and can afford to, this should be something that comes out of your entertainment budget, not your rent, not your kids' orphanage bills, not anything like that. Don't worry about it. But if you can afford to and you're interested, there are a number of great ways to support the channel. Best one is probably the Patreon. It's where I get to keep the most. That starts at $1 a month. You can get a 15% discount for going annually. Gets you access to early access scripted videos, my special Discord server just for supporters, and higher tiers get you higher perks. There's also joining the channel. Join button right below this. Your name will turn green unless you're already blue, in which case you'll still get the cool little badge. You'll get a badge. It starts at $1.99. You get early access as well as that Discord server. There are also better perks. It goes all the way up to $20 if you want to. I do keep a little bit less there, so there is that. But yeah, it's a pretty great deal. You also get 1 free membership chat each month. There it is. Roshna Keller from 199 says, Decker watches SciShow confirmed. This is correct. Did in fact find that out today watching SciShow. SciShow was good stuff. Go subscribe to SciShow if you have not. Subscribe to me also. Anyway, if a monthly or an annual pledge is not really your deal, but you still want to help out, there are still a number of ways. I mean, there's always super chatting, membership chatting, all that stuff. But also, there is a merch store right below this video. There's a shelf. Buy a t-shirt, buy a blanket, buy a pillow. All that stuff helps. There is also a Amazon wish list, both for me and Bent, listed in the description. For me, there's a lot of different like books. There's game books. There's comic books. There's also some food on there. We do not need rice, so you can skip over the rice for now. Bent also has a wish list. There's music stuff. There's snacks. There's all sorts of stuff on there. Bent also has a Patreon listed in the description, which usually you upload like work in progress and finished music files for your music on. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I do.
So if you like Bent's music, you can go toss him a few bucks, or if you just like Bent, you can go toss him a few bucks. And finally, if financially is not a way that you can or want to support the channel, is absolutely fine. What everyone can do to help the channel is like my videos, subscribe to the channel, and watch a few videos in a row. All right, that is enough of stuff that is not relevant to Kent. Let's hear from Kent again. He said, realizing what a terrible, terrible idea that is. But first,
Not a good sentence.
Yeah, Roshna Ubu Keller for $4.99 says, or PBS Eons too. They share so much. I often confuse them. Yes. Yeah, it was PBS. Oh yeah, it was PBS Eons, not SciShow. Look, go subscribe to both of them. They're both great. Of course, if you're here at my channel, you're probably already subscribed to both PBS Eons and SciShow. So, whatever. All right, here we go.
Well, the toughest man decides. You know, might makes right. Whoever has the biggest gun, you know, he's in charge, kind of thing.
I mean, that's just literally what it is anyway. Like, think about it. Why do you pay your taxes? Why should Kent have paid his taxes? What happened to Kent when he didn't? Men with guns showed up.
To prison.
Yeah. And who took him there? Men with guns.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's, from a practical standpoint, that's what happens anyway, whether or not Satan is in charge. There's a whole lot of horrible nonsense stuff that goes on in the world. because certain people have the guns and other people don't have the guns in that area. I mean, that's just what it is. So, Roshna Uwu Keller gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. Thank you so much. And that is worth 5 drinks. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we are well on pace for getting you some free pizza.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's what I like to hear.
I feel like that's the only time you eat pizza is when we get free pizza from chat.
Sometimes when it's on sale at the grocery store.
Okay, that's fair. How about delivery pizza? It's the only time you seem to eat delivery pizza. Is when I buy it for you. Okay.
That is true.
Mm-hmm. Alex Markle says, wait, are you saying that the good guy with a gun is the state? I will say this. Sometimes the good guy with a gun is the state. Sometimes the state is the bad guy with a gun. Because the state is not an unambiguously good thing in all cases. Which is, again, I'm getting way too political. Jeez. Hey, everybody, did you know that a state is just a territorial monopoly on legitimized initiation of violence? Fun facts! And yes, it's virtually impossible to philosophically justify that monopoly. Hooray!
And so that ties right into Satan's plan also to help destroy humanity and further destroy the world, and leads to things like genocide, which we'll get into here during the...
Kent, I just have to point out that Christianity blaming Jewish people for the death of Jesus, despite the fact that that's apparently a good thing in Christianity, has been the cause for numerous and repeated pogroms throughout Christian history. And what a pogrom is it's basically a little genocide. The people in some city or something get together and decide to kick out or kill all the Jewish people in the city. That has happened repeatedly throughout Christian history. Now, it's not unique to Christian history. There have been Muslim-led pogroms too. And for all I know, maybe there's been other pogroms outside of Muslim and Christian communities. But you don't get to pretend that Christians aren't people who start genocides. Now, most Christians will never start a genocide. Most Christians would be against starting a genocide. And in fact, even historically, many Christians were opposed to the genocides going on, being conducted primarily by other Christians. There's a reason that many popes had to release letters saying, hey, you're not allowed to murder or dispossess Jews. Stop. It's because, 1, Christians were doing that, and 2, because their hierarchy was like, no, that's not okay. So yeah, you can find anti-genocide parts of Christianity, but you can also find very pro-genocide parts of Christianity. And that's also true for atheism. There are atheists committing genocides right now. We'll look at China. Now, their genocide against the Uyghur is not primarily by killing them, it's by trying to destroy their distinctive culture. But guess what? Check the definition for genocide. That also counts. And that is something that's being done primarily by people who are anti-theists against a theistic group. Now, granted, they're Muslims, so maybe Kent doesn't care, because apparently they're not Christians, and maybe that matters to him. But the line between genocide and non-genocide is not identical to the line between along any kind of religious affiliation. Secret author of the Voynich manuscript for 200 Argentinian pesos says, Bent, I'm having some homemade pizza right now. I could send you some. It might arrive cold, though. Well, I mean, maybe, but also you have to remember that this is southern Arizona. It would arrive weirdly warm, but not warm enough to be...
already reheated.
Yeah, but the thing is not hot enough to actually make it safe to eat, which is one of the tricky things about shipping things here. This is like...
I appreciate the offer.
Yeah. Goopdo3 for $2 says, pizza, 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 with emojis. Thank you very much.
Nice.
All right, here we go.
this session. So the problem basically is very simple. We are in the center of the battlefield in the greatest war in history. This is Satan versus God. The battlefield is us. We're in the middle of it. All you need to do is simply decide which side you want to be on, find out what your general wants you to do, and do it.
And note that while Kent will say that the general is God, in practice, he's the one who's going to tell you what kinds of things need to get done. Because, let's be honest, Kent takes the place of God. And you might say, hey, Dapper, that's not fair. How do you know that? And here's how I know. In Exodus, Moses is a direct representative for God, right? That's a fair assessment according to what your understanding is, Bent?
Sure.
Right. He's the one who sees God face to face. He's a direct prophet delivering the words straight from God to the people. Now,
Yes.
do you remember the story of Korah's rebellion, which is not Korah from the Avatar sequel show? This is the Korah from the Bible.
Not particularly, no.
Well, Korah is a woman who helped lead a rebellion against Moses, and it's part of the Bible. And so, in this sense, she is leading or helping to lead a rebellion directly against the representative of God, and by extension, directly against God. When Cindy Lincoln was in the process of being kicked out of Dinosaur Adventureland, and this is according to her, she was compared to Korah and Kent to Moses, which means that at least according to the people that Kent is closest to, and the people that he has the most power over, they see him as a direct representative of God here on Earth. So if you think I'm exaggerating when I say that Kent is going to be the one who tells you what the general wants, or at least he wants to be that guy, I am not exaggerating.
He's already been that guy.
Yeah, he is that guy right now. In Dinosaur Adventureland, at least. Olivia Williams for $6.99 Beaverbucks says, I just got around watching Kent debate cats. Kent got schooled so bad with the Ghidorah. Yeah, we'll take a drink for that. And man, I watched that debate. In fact, I actually talked to Cats afterwards. And boy, did that debate give us one of my favorite Kent memes, which is, I'm not prepared for that, because that's what he said to basically everything that Cats brought up as evidence for evolution. And at one point, I'm paraphrasing here, but Katz is like, Kent, I thought we were here to discuss evolution, and everything I've said as evidence for evolution, you weren't prepared to talk about. So it seems like you just don't have any idea what the evidence for evolution is. And Kent's like, well, I wouldn't say that. Yeah, okay, Kent.
Of course not.
Roshna Uwu Keller for $9.99 says, speaking of the pro-genocide Christians, Noah Webster was originally an abolitionist until he became an extreme white supremacist. Well, that is not something I knew. That's unfortunate. Like, wait, is that Noah Webster from, like, the dictionary? Because that would suck. Oh, well.
It's just that simple. There's a war going on against God. Henry Morris has a great book called The Long War Against God. And they had an older...
Calling anything Henry Morris wrote great is a bit of a stretch.
The different cover was different before, but now they've changed it to this one, The Long War Against God. And this is one of the books you can read to do a report on for this class. Absolutely one of the best books I've ever read. Henry Morris traces the...
Wait, were we supposed to be doing book reports this whole time?
All right, we have to start over.
All right, guys, we're going back to CSE 101. Hold on, do we do the end credits, or do we just go back and download the video? What do we do?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay,
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out
time.
for next time.
history of evolutionary thought all through the last 6,000 years. And we're going to...
And nothing from like even 300 years ago could even reasonably be said to be connected on anything other than like a thematic basis to modern evolutionary biology. That was an incredibly stupid thing to say. It was an incredibly stupid thing for Henry Morris to write about. But then again, he's Henry Morris, so what else is new? And I'm taking a drink for how stupid.
I concentrate primarily on just the last 200 years on this class, but we'll give you just a quick overview of some of the rest. Christians already have an incredible advantage over anybody else in the world on this topic. When you discuss what's happening and what to do, we've got a book, the perfect book, the Bible, that already...
Okay. First, the Bible isn't a book. It is a collection of many books. A collection whose contents varies depending on which Christian you're talking to. Now, also, some Christians have things that they don't consider to be in the Bible, but that are still supposed to be scripture. Looking at the Mormons, or in certain ways, the Seventh-day Adventists, who think that, wasn't Mary Baker Eddy? She was a Christian Scientist. Wasn't she? Oh, it doesn't matter. They believe they have a prophet from like the 1800s, whose, in her words, are essentially new scripture. But further, the Bible is internally inconsistent. You have to, in order to get it to be consistent, you have to ignore certain parts of it and prioritize other certain parts of it, and then also bring in extra biblical assumptions that you just impose on the text, which, again, You can do. I'm not telling you you're not allowed to. But what you're not doing in that case is letting the Bible speak for itself. You are imposing your own traditions and your own interpretive frameworks onto the Bible. Now, to some extent, that's always what's going to happen, right? Because you cannot read a text without bringing your own interpretation to it. Because otherwise, I mean, I guess you could, but it would have to be a text in a language that you don't even speak, right? Like if I presented, Bent, you don't speak, say, Japanese, do you?
I do not.
Okay, well, actually, I'll use a language that uses the Latin alphabet, so you could kind of read it-ish. So you don't speak any Romanian, say.
No.
So if I presented you with a text in Romanian, you could scan over every word, and your brain would get some idea as to roughly how they were pronounced based on the same alphabet.
Maybe.
But
not very much.
Not very much, but to some degree, there would be something going on in your brain as you scanned over those words that is akin to reading, at least.
Sure.
But you probably couldn't tell me anything about what the book said, or what it meant, or your interpretation of it.
Highly doubt it.
Right. That's basically the only way to read without bringing in your interpretation. If you read a text in English, the fact that it means something to you, and you speak English, it means you're interpreting it. And so it's fine to interpret things. But if you're going to say that this is what the Bible says, and it's infallible in saying that, you cannot do that on the basis of the Bible. The Bible is internally contradictory. Has no one seen God? Or have numerous people seen God throughout the Bible? Because the Bible says both things in multiple places. So, just on that matter, it's inconsistent. It's also inconsistent on various parts of the narrative. Like, who killed Goliath? And who killed Goliath according to what you remember from church?
David.
You remember Elhanan?
No.
Well, the Bible says that Elhanan killed Goliath as well.
Okay.
Yeah, that's in there. Who killed Goliath? Was it David or Elhanan? Because Elhanan doesn't even come up in the story of David killing Goliath. It's an internal contradiction. And you know what? If you're not trying to take the Bible as your infallible, literal history of the world, that's okay. You don't have to believe in a literally infallible Bible. You can be a Christian and not believe that. In fact, that's historically been the more common Christian position. To simply say, yeah, the Bible has some stuff that doesn't really make sense together, and that's why we have an interpretive framework that we impose on it in order to come up with a coherent theology. Okay, cool. Just acknowledge that that's what you're doing and stop pretending that the Bible is an infallible book, which it's not. Savage Blueberry Chromosome Crumble Cobra for $4.99 says, it's a good thing fundamentalist Christianity is the only religion to ever have a book. Yeah, there is that too. It's just like, there are other religions that make similar claims about their books. Like, Islam comes to mind very prominently. In fact, in Islam, if anything, they have a higher view of their book than most Christians do of the Bible, in that most Christians don't think the Bible was literally dictated by God, except for certain passages, maybe. Whereas according to most mainstream Muslims, the Quran is the direct dictation of God to Gabriel, who then perfectly transmitted it to Muhammad, whose followers then perfectly wrote it down. So, it's like the direct speech of God. In fact, there are I suppose I should say, Islamic theological ideas about the Quran actually being co-eternal with God, and that the Quran is actually an uncreated thing that exists alongside God for all eternity, because apparently Arabic is an eternal language. So, there you go. It's handy that humans happen to develop that language, sometime in the first millennium or a little bit earlier. That was very convenient of those humans to develop the eternal language of God through natural language evolution processes, Proto-West Semitic. Very, very convenient.
Told us what's going to happen. We already know the end. We know the final result. You see, I read the last chapter and we win.
Again, Revelation has nothing to do with predictions about the current year. It is all about persecution of Christians by Rome and exhorting them to further loyalty to Christianity.
So it's nothing to get nervous about. I get a lot of people come to my seminars when I talk about the New World Order, and they leave nervous. Oh, wow, the world's falling apart. Well, I suppose if you study this kind of topic, you could really get nervous when you study what happened at Waco, what really happened at Waco.
Oh my God, take a drink. Jeez. Okay, here's the thing about Waco. First, I am not going to say that the federal government handled Waco well. They absolutely did not. right? There were much better ways to handle this. For one thing, David Koresh left that compound sometime, here and there. Grab him when he's not there. He was the one you were after in the first place, right? Second, the deal with the children, and that was just a PR disaster. It was very poorly handled. And third, did the government set the fire that eventually burned a whole bunch of people in the compound to death, including some of the kids that were in there? It doesn't seem like it to me. But also, the Branch Dravidians were not what Kent would consider to be real Christians, right? Like, David Koresh was saying that he was the return of Jesus Christ. Kent doesn't think that. So Kent framing this as some kind of, like, the government going against Christians is not even a valid narrative within his own worldview. Because those Branch Dravidians are closer to what he thinks of as the bad guys in Revelation, to what he thinks of as the good guys. Because they were following an Antichrist figure, according to Kent, who, again, as far as I know, doesn't think that David Koresh was the second coming of Jesus, which is what the people at Waco thought. So, yeah.
Like the Waco whitewash, and how the people were just, murdered at Waco, and what the government did. When you study about the...
You know what? Whatever. I'm not even going to contest whether or not they were murdered. You can look into that yourself. And quite frankly, I don't really care what conclusion you come to on that one.
Jekyll Island, what happened with the Federal Reserve, and how we got a Federal Reserve system, and now we no longer have any money. We have paper we carry around, and we think it's money still.
Okay, this is going to require at least one drink, and then I'm going to talk about Jekyll Island. So first, the basic narrative that a bunch of bankers met on Jekyll Island to propose a new system for centralized fiat currency for the United States is broadly accurate. That is basically what happened. And yes, the United States did go off of a commodity-backed money and onto a fiat currency system with the Federal Reserve Act. Or, look, it was a little bit more complicated with, like, Nixon ending the international gold window, which had already been closed to America. We're not getting into, like, a monetary history of the United States here. But here's the thing. Fiat money is money. And here's how you know. Is fiat money the thing that is used to account in either your home life or in businesses? Is that what you keep your books in? Is in numbers of that amount of fiat currency? It is for me. Bent, it is for you too?
Yes, it is.
Has it been that for every company you've ever worked for?
So far.
So far for me too. Okay, so that's one of the ways that it's money. Is it able to be used as a store of value? Can you save up amounts of fiat currency and then later spend that saved value?
Yes.
Yep. Is it the commodity that is the most liquid and the easiest to use in exchange in the economy?
It seems like it.
Yep. In fact, when people say liquidize assets, they basically just mean sell them for fiat money. So whatever you might think about the gold standard, fiat money is money. You might like the gold standard more for philosophical reasons. You might even have economic arguments as to why it's a better idea in the long run. But what it is not is fake money. It is real money. It's granted money that's not backed by anything, except for the fact that if you don't give the government certain amounts of it, they'll come after you with guns, as Kent Hovind found out, much to his displeasure. But it is money because it fulfills all of the functions of money, which is a unit of account, a store of value, and a medium of exchange. That's what makes it money. If anything has those three aspects, it is money. Savage Blueberry Chromosome Cobra for $4.99 says, but the government going after harmful cults is bad news for Kent, not because he's a cult leader or anything. Yeah, maybe that's why he's so concerned with what went on at Waco, because he realizes that could happen to him. And actually, according to at least Cindy, the sheriff's department in Conacook County are nervous about going into Dinosaur Adventureland because they know that Dinosaur Adventureland is full of guns. So, yeah.
Hasn't been money in 70 years. They've got all the gold. We're carrying around some paper thinking, wow, I got money. You don't have a dime.
Actually, you do. In fact, dimes are still issued, Kent.
They've stolen us, they've robbed us blind. When you get into subjects, Des Griffin, awesome book, The Fourth Reich of the Rich. We can go on, and I read.
Hey, Hey, Ben, remember how I asked how long it would take until what he said was just a barely veiled thing for just the Jews?
Yeah, I do recall.
You want to know who the Fourth Reich of the rich ultimately blames?
I would guess the Jews.
Man,
Mm.
yeah. Yeah, so that's how long it took. It took 7 minutes and 11 seconds. Yep. So just drink for a confirmed prediction, I guess. Thanks, Kent. Also, of course, conspiracy theories about Jekyll Island and the Federal Reserve are mostly, it comes down to the Jews. But they don't technically have to, because, there were plenty of bankers who weren't Jews. But it often does. So that's one of those, he was already almost there when he was talking about Jekyll Island. Which, by the way, hey, guys, if you are a bunch of bankers who want to have a meeting about changing the banking system in a country, pick a place that doesn't sound like the evil lair of a comic book villain. Just advice. Because holy crap, is Jekyll Island such a, pitch perfect comic book villain location? Just go someplace like Cincinnati. No one's going to talk about Cincinnati as if it's some kind of, den of villainy. Go someplace like that. Savage Blueberry Chromosome Crumble Cobra for $1.99 says, Kent's intellect is as weak as his dime. And then Roshna Uwu Keller for $4.99 says, gold also isn't generally liquid financially and requires conversion to either electronic, yeah, that's what it says, money or fiat cash. So gold used to be more liquid back when it was money. It is not currently very liquid because usually you can't make payments directly in gold. So, but that was not always the case. So it's one of those things where gold used to be liquid enough to be directly used as money. It no longer is. Savage Blueberry Chromosome Cobra for $1.99 says, failure is his destiny, and I would have to agree with that. All right.
Read lots and lots of books about the New World Order. And it's enough to make you nervous, unless you keep in perspective Psalms chapter 2.
Okay, take a drink. Remember how I said that Kent is as bad at the Bible as he is at anything else?
Yes.
There is no such thing as Psalms chapter 2.
Chapter.
What you mean, Kent, is Psalm 2, because the book of Psalms contains individual psalms, each of which is a psalm. So it's Psalm 1, 2, 3, all the way to 150, unless you're using one of those psalters that has a 151st psalm, which does occasionally happen, in which case it has 151 psalms. Which, again, notice that there's diversity in what actually counts as, quote-unquote, the Bible within Christianity. All right, Savage Blueberry Chromosome Crumble Cobra for $1.99 says, he disrespects himself and his nation. Correct. Quivered, the Alpha and Omega Dog newsletters for $2 says, but Cincinnati is the home of the Justice League. Right, exactly, which is why it seems like it wouldn't be the kind of place where a bunch of villainous comic book villains wouldn't hang out, because they'd be too scared to. But also, isn't it like Metropolis or something? I don't know, I'm not as much up on my DC lore as I should be. Let's see. Savage Blueberry Chromosome Cobra for $1.99 says, he is made of word YouTube doesn't like. Yes, I would have to agree, no matter what that word happens to be. I don't actually happen to know which word it is. So, all right, let's keep going.
God is laughing at their plans for Toy One World Government.
That don't, by any estimation, actually exist. Remember, there's no evidence that a bunch of bankers who wanted to avoid the gold standard and the problems that came with it were trying to create a one world order. That's not a thing. There's no one, near as I can tell, trying to create a one world order.
So the more I learn about the New World Order, it is tempting to get nervous and scared about what's going on. But God knows, and He's not nervous. He's laughing at the whole thing.
Weird, because according to the Bible, the Tower of Babel made God nervous. So, if a little stone and mud tower can make God nervous, according to the Bible, if we're going to be literalists like Kent is, seems like God would be super nervous about things like skyscrapers and New World Orders. Remember, if we're going to take the Bible literally, God gets nervous about stone towers, about people eating the wrong fruit, about people having chariots that are made out of iron because apparently he doesn't have any power over that. There's a lot of places in the Bible where if we're going to take the Bible the way Kent says he takes it, God gets nervous about a lot of stuff. Because the God of the Bible, if you take the Bible literally, isn't omnipotent. So, yeah. Goop23 for $5 says, the Justice League headquarters is based on a famous building in Cincinnati, Union Station. Oh, okay. Yeah, I did not know that. That is news to me. I am, like I said, not as up on DC lore as I probably should be. Well, what does that even mean? How much should I know about DC lore? Because I feel like there's no one answer to that. Like,
As much as you want to know.
then I might be as up to date on it as up on it as I should be. I don't know. I'm certainly not as much up on it as some of my audience is. I'll say that. I'm certainly better at Marvel lore. So there's that. And also, the only comics I'm reading recently are actually the Boom Studio Power Rangers comics, which are unironically extremely good, by the way. I heartily endorse them. All right, here we go.
Because he knows we win. So keep that in perspective. So if you go through part of this class, you may leave going home scared, nervous, saying, wow, the world's falling apart, the sky is falling, what do we do? It'll be fine in the end. Okay, just read the last chapter, we win. So we're going to trace a little bit of the history of this war so you can understand what we should do for our general and relieve your fears about what may happen in the future. God created the world. He owns it. He makes the rules. Genesis 1:1, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth.
And like we said earlier, it does not actually follow from that fact that God makes the rule. So, it's a bad argument as to why God makes the rule. You could make a better argument, say, by pointing out that God explicitly puts down rules in the narrative of the text in places like, Leviticus and Deuteronomy. But, hey, what do I know? Savage Blueberry Chromosome Crumble Cobra for $4.99 says, he is made of stupid. YouTube can't read italics. Oh, is that the word? Okay, I didn't know that stupid wasn't allowed in YouTube chats. That's weird. Also, it seems like a huge oversight that they can't read italicized text. Like, come on, guys. And, I'm not saying that they should change it, because, quite frankly, I like the fact that people who are clever enough can get around weird things like YouTube won't let you say stupid. But, YouTube, what are you doing? I know you don't want people to be able to do that. But then again, they also seem to very much less censor certain other languages. I've noticed that when people say things in like Romanian or even sometimes Spanish, YouTube's just like, no, it's fine. It's fine. You can say that, just not in English. Okay.
The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein.
Now, see, that's actually not a terrible verse to make this point, right? But also, what does it say as the reference for this verse?
Psalms 24:1.
Yep. So let's just take a drink for Ken again, somehow being as bad at the Bible as he is at everything else. It baffles me, because the one thing Ken should be good at is the Bible. It's what he says he bases his entire view of the world on. And yet, here's Kent saying, well, if we look at Psalms 24, no, Kent. How are you this bad at the Bible?
Everything belongs to God, Psalm 24 tells us. So about 6,000 years ago or so, Lucifer decided he should be God.
Something that isn't in the Bible, but okay.
In Ezekiel 8:28, it tells us the story. Thou, talking about Lucifer, was perfect in thy ways from the day that thou wast created, till iniquity was found in thee.
Okay, so that was Ezekiel 28, was it? We'll back up. 20... Nope, wait.
Yes.
So about 6,000 years ago or so, Lucifer decided he should be...
We'll just let it go.
Tells us the story.
All right, Ezekiel 28. Let's look up Ezekiel 20. Ezekiel 28. Okay. Let's see. The word of the Lord came to me, this is Ezekiel speaking, Son of man, say to the ruler of Tyre, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Okay, so, quick quiz. The ruler of Tyre. Satan? No. Human king. So let's remember, this is about a human king. So, what does the sovereign Lord say to the ruler of Tyre? In the pride of your heart you say, I am God, I sit on the throne of a god, and in the hearts of the seas. But you are a mere mortal and not a god, and you think you are as wise as God. So, according to Kent's ideas, is Satan immortal? I would largely argue no, because Satan is supposed to be a fallen, immortal angel. So again, probably not talking about any kind of supernatural, immortal being here. This is verse 3. Are you wiser than Daniel? Is no secret hidden from you? Again, this sounds really like we're talking to a human king here. By your wisdom and understanding, you have gained wealth for yourself and amassed gold and silver in your treasuries. Doesn't sound like Satan. By your great skill in trading, you have increased your wealth. Because of your wealth, your heart has grown proud. Again, is Satan a big mercantile interest? Can you trade with Satan for gold and put what he gives you? Yeah. Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says. That's out of quotations. That's Ezekiel speaking again. Because you think you are wise as the God, I am going to bring foreigners against you, the most ruthless nations. They will draw their swords against your beauty and wisdom and pierce you with shining splendor. So is God threatening Satan with a foreign invasion of Satan's what? His temporal kingdom that can be defeated by an army? Doesn't seem like it. They will bring you down to the pit and you will die a violent death in the heart of the seas. So is God threatening that Satan is going to drown? Then you will say, I am God in the presence... will you then say, I am God in the presence of those who kill you? But you will be a mortal, not a god, in the hands of those who slay you. You will die the death of the uncircumcised at the hands of the foreigners. I have spoken, declares the sovereign Lord. The word of the Lord, this is verse 11, the word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, take up a lament concerning the king of Tyre, and say to him, this is what the sovereign Lord says. So, a lament concerning whom? The king of Tyre. Quote, you were the seal of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. You were in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone adorned you, carnelian, chrysolite, and emerald, topaz, onyx, and jasper, lapis lazuli, turquoise, and beryl. Your settings and mountings were made of gold. On the day you were created, they were prepared. You were anointed as a guardian cherub, for so I ordained you. You were on the holy mount of God. You walked among the fiery stones. You were blameless in your ways from the day you were created till wickedness was found in you. They will finally get to the verse that Kent is citing. So when we go look at the entire context of Ezekiel 28, who is Ezekiel 28 about? The king of Tyre. The only way to make the claim that this is not about the king of Tyre is if you ignore the rest of the verse that comes before this. On the off chance that you ever watch this, Kent, or if any fans of Kent are watching, Kent, why do you think it's okay to lie about the Bible? I get why you think it's okay to lie about science, or politics, or the Jews, because you do all those things too. Why do you think it's okay to lie about the Bible? Because that's a very different thing. We've got a few super chats here. And Vestigial Bangs Gladstone for $5 says, I went to Jekyll Island a lot as a kid and can vouch I did not see any gold wrangling in the 1970s. Can't vouch for 1910 with a Godzilla and a Mothra. We'll take a drink, thank you. And then Roshna Uwu Keller for $19.99, thank you so much, says AIG is a bag of objects in Ezekiel 23:20. I'm going to go ahead and say that that's a drink trigger. And then let me update the counter. All right. We are really close, Spence.
I'm very excited.
You should be.
Thou, talking about Lucifer, was perfect in thy ways from the day that thou wast created.
Was it talking about Lucifer as in Satan? No. The Adventure of Secret Museum Agents, my writer, for $2 says, you should know the King of Tyre is the Michelin Man. Good pun, I like it.
Till iniquity was found in thee. I don't claim to understand everything that happened here, how Satan rebelled, or what exactly happened in heaven, but it appears that Satan rebelled first, decided he wanted to be God, apparently.
Again, nothing of which is in Ezekiel.
His heart was lifted up. The Bible says in Ezekiel 28:17, the heart was lifted up.
Oh, wait, we got a couple more verses to read. So 16. Through your widespread trade, you were filled with violence and you sinned. So I drove you in disgrace from the mount of God and expelled you, guardian cherub, from among the fiery stones. So, I'm sorry, was Satan involved in too much international trade and that's why God got angry at Satan? Is that what's happening right now? You notice how Kent skips a couple of verses where it's very obvious that the Bible isn't talking about Satan, so that he can get to the next verse, 17, where it says, "Your heart became proud on account of your beauty, and you corrupted your wisdom because of your splendor. So I threw you to earth and I made a spectacle of you before kings." I mean, yeah, that verse in isolation kind of sounds like it could be about the fall of Satan. Except the verse right before it is talking about how there were too many trade networks and you were proud of your crazy trade networks. Which is not something that any Christian could reasonably say about Satan and his fall. Because I don't remember mercantile interests in the story of the fall of Satan. This is the thing that really pisses me off. Because you would think that of all the things, Kent would at least hold the Bible sacred. It would be at least the one thing he wants to be as honest as he can about. At least from within his interpretive framework. But he's not. He has to lie to us about it. And it really bugs me, because it means that Kent isn't a principled man, right? I can at least understand if you're principled and you have principles other than mine, and therefore that leads you to do things that I would consider to be bad. But when you don't even have the principles and you do things that, according to what your own say, are bad things to do, like lying about the Bible, what do I do with you? How do I interact with you on a basis when you're going to do that? You're going to take the one thing you think should be held sacred and just crap all over it. I don't know what to do with that. I will tell you, it reinforces my idea that Kent is one of the more detestable creationists out there. Like, you know what, Bent? You stated several times that you're a Christian here on this channel. How do you feel about the way Kent is treating the Bible?
I'm not a fan of it.
Yeah.
That's the nicest way I can say that.
You can say it in a meaner way if you like, as long as it's not going
Trying
to
to
get
be
me
nice.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm just trying.
Fair enough.
Because of thy beauty, thou hast corrupted thy wisdom by reason of thy brightness. I will cast thee down to the ground. I will lay thee before kings, that they may behold thee. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning?
Wait, now we're in Isaiah? Kent just switched books without even saying anything.
He didn't even stop talking after he finished the previous verse. He just went right into the next one as if it was the next sentence.
Okay, well now we have to look up Isaiah 14 to see if that's actually about Satan. Bent, would you like to make a prediction as to whether or not this will actually be about Satan? What do you think?
It might be, because it does say, "Oh, Lucifer," right there.
It does.
Verse 12. But if Lucifer isn't Satan, then maybe not.
Okay. Well, so let's see. This is Isaiah 14. Now, 14 actually starts at the end of a different prophetic announcement by Isaiah, but the start of this prophetic announcement is at verse 3. On the day the Lord gives you relief from your suffering and turmoil and from the harsh labor forced upon you, you will take up this taunt against, what do you think is coming next? Supernatural agent of evil? Or a different mortal ruler?
Probably a mortal ruler.
Yeah, against the king of Babylon. How the oppressor has come to an end, how his fury has ended. The Lord has broken the rod of the wicked, the scepter of the rulers, which in anger struck down peoples with unceasing blows, and the fury subdued nations, and relentless aggression. All the lands are at rest and peace, they break into singing. Even the junipers and cedars of Lebanon gloat over you and say, now that you have been laid low, no one comes to cut us down. Was Satan involved in the forestry industry? Is that what we're hearing from the Bible? The realm of the dead below is all astir to meet you at your coming. It rouses the spirits of the departed to greet you, all those who were leaders in this world. It makes them rise from their thrones, all those who were kings over the nations. They will all respond. They will say to you, you have also become weak, as we are. You have become like us. All your pomp has been brought down to the grave, and along with the noise of all your harps, maggots are spreading out beneath you, and worms cover you. How you have fallen from heaven, morning star, son of the dawn. You have been cast down to earth, who once laid low the nations. This is about the king of Babylon. Kent just switched books without even saying it, and we're again at a prophecy against a different foreign king. I don't know how to drive home any more clearly that Kent will lie just as much about the Bible as he will about literally anything else. There is nothing that is sacred to Kent Hovind. He is just lying to you about what this says. Now, you might have noticed that I said, "Oh, morning star," instead of "Oh, Lucifer." I am reading from a different translation. That is fair. Lucifer literally just means light bearer. And in the Hebrew, it also says light bearer, which was a name for the planet Venus, the morning star. And when St. Jerome translated the Isaiah into Latin, he went and took basically a Latin calque. He translated light bearer or light bringer from Hebrew directly into Latin with Lucifer. So that's where we get Lucifer from. But all right. Jeez, here's a few more super chats. Let's see. Roshna Uwu Keller for 199. Would you ever interact with Kent again? Maybe. I don't know. Like, I'm not super inclined to, but if I had a really good reason to, yeah, I wouldn't rule it out. I don't currently plan to. I don't think I would lose anything by never again interacting with him directly, but I guess it's possible. I'm not going to say I would never ever do it under any circumstance. For the Alpha and Omega Dog newsletter for $2 says use the one F-bomb exclamation emoji with a bomb and then a Ghidorah, and we'll take a drink for that. And I'm pretty close. Roshna Uwu Keller for 199 says Isaiah 14:12 is about the planet Venus, kind of. So the planet Venus was seen as either a symbol of or as the actual god, unactual god, by the people of ancient Mesopotamia, as well as, most of the world, right? The reason that Venus is called Venus is because the planet Venus was seen as a manifestation of the Roman god Venus, the goddess of love. So, and basically it's comparing the king of Babylon in his haughtiness to someone who would compare themselves or think of themselves as one of the great gods of their pantheon. And what it's saying is that instead, God is going to lay low this king of Babylon for all of his transgressions and humble him and bring him down to a position where he's no better than the dead kings of the past who are now languishing in Sheol, being essentially just barely conscious shades. And it's essentially mocking his self-aggrandizement by calling him Venus, right? Saying, "Oh, you're so great that you think that you were the god that announces the coming of the dawn. But instead, what you actually are is someone who's going to be humbled lower than the lowest person imaginable." So that's what's going on there. So it's not directly about the planet Venus per se as we understand it. It's definitely something that is steeped in the mythological milieu of the ancient Near East and Mesopotamia. So, all right. I do think we're starting to fall a little bit behind pace, though. We're cutting it close.
Morning, how art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High.
Again, this is all about the king of Babylon. He is putting himself as equal to the high gods of Babylon. And this is a prophetic pronouncement against him doing this. This is not about some supernatural agent that fell from grace 100 years after the creation. It says in the text who this is about. It's the king of Babylon.
This is the best glimpse we have from Scripture of what's going on in the mind of Satan.
Sure. Or the mind of the king of Babylon. Who cares? Just take a drink.
5 times he said, I will. He's exerting his will. He wants to be God, according to
Roshna Uwu Keller for 1999 says, they was really poetic, Dapper, with a heart and then a cat with heart emojis. And yeah, you know what? Look, I am someone who's a big fan of the literary value of the Bible on top of whatever else it might get for you, right? The Bible is an amazing text full of amazing literature, no matter what else it is. And this prophetic announcement is full of rich imagery, and there's so much talking about, like, the oppression that the Hebrews were facing at the hands of the Babylonians, and their self-aggrandizement and their haughtiness and their hubris, and the prophets attempting to take them down a notch and pointing out their own mortality to them and things like that. That's great stuff. And instead, Kent has to lie about it and make it like, I don't know, like the origin story for a comic book film. And it's so much less interesting to me that way, because you could be talking about the actual historical context of this text and the actual imagery it's evoking of comparing the gods of Babylon and God and the self-aggrandizement and like auto-deification of the king of Babylon versus, you know, like Isaiah trying to point out that he's just like any other man and he's going to die and be laid low. But no, instead, here comes Kent with like, oh, I guess now we know what Satan's all about. Even though Satan is nowhere in there. And yes, this verse is in fact, or sorry, that passage is where we get the idea that Satan's name is Lucifer, but you can only get that when you are accepting later, like, we're talking about like 6th, 7th, 8th century Christian musings on these books, and the the evolving idea of Satan as a supernatural antagonist to God and Christians broadly, which was only barely present in the New Testament, but became a fully fledged theology of demonology by, like, you know, the fairly early in Christian history, but certainly well after the Bible, and well after Isaiah was written. But sure, we could just ignore all that. We could just pretend that historical context doesn't exist in order to make things simple for Kent so he can come up with his own theology of Satan that directly contradicts the words of the text. But who cares about that?
Book of Ezekiel. The next verse tells us, though, yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. He's going to lose. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, is this the man that made the earth to tremble?
The what now? Is this
The man.
the man? Is that what that says?
It says man.
Huh. Is Satan supposed to be a man?
Not really.
No, he's not. Yeah, weird. It's weird how even the part Kent quotes directly I'm taking a drink. I can't with this. Savage Blueberry Chromosome Crumble Cobra for $9.99 says, it's truly amazing just how little respect fundamentalists have for their own text, and how most high one has to be for their historical understanding to make sense. Yeah, it's honestly frustrating, because like I said, I really think the Bible is an amazing group of texts, regardless of your theological take on it, but your theological take shouldn't diminish what the text is actually saying, right? At the very least, that's what I ask of you. Like, look, if you're going to take a theological take on the text, don't ignore what it's still actually saying on its own terms, right? Sure, have a deeper meaning that you take behind the text and whatnot. Okay, sure, whatever. But at the very least, be honest about what the text itself is saying. And that's not what Kent is doing, and it really bugs me. Like, it really, really does. As someone who is, kind of a fan of the Bible, someone who owns, like 9 of them or something.
That did shake kingdoms. Whenever I read this verse, I think about the Wizard of Oz. You know the movie Wizard of Oz, and everybody is scared stiff of the Oz, and they go in there and you see this huge face and the flames coming out, and
Yes, Kent, I've seen the Wizard of Oz.
Cowardly Lion, and they all take off running, and dive through the window and the whole thing.
I don't remember that happening. Did someone dive through a window in the Wizard of Oz? Maybe, because it's been a while. Let me know, guys. Did someone dive out of a window in the meeting with Oz scene? Because I don't remember that. But look, maybe I'm wrong. Roshna Uwu Keller for $4 says, someone cover the spread for the Tholian. Oh, thank you very much. We're almost there.
At the end of the movie, you find out Oz is nothing but a little bitty guy behind the curtain pulling some levers. I think at the end of history, we're going to find out Satan is a puny little fella, and we're going to marvel and say, this is the guy that caused all this trouble on the earth? This is him? Come on, you got to be kidding. We're just going to be amazed at what a wimp he is when he's cast down into hell. Meantime, he's pulling the levers and making the smoke and the fires and the flames and scaring everybody half to death, and people are scared stiff of the devil. Okay. Next verse says, this is the man that made the world as a wilderness, and destroyed the cities thereof, and opened not the house of his prisoners.
what? When did Satan do any of these things that he's reading? Right? That does not sound like any idea of Satan that I'm familiar with, and yet he's just like, yeah, Satan destroying all them cities, as you do. I don't know, Kent. Which cities in particular do you think were destroyed directly by Satan? Just name a few. And Vestigial Bangs Gladstone, who's been a member for 34 months, thank you so much, and is at the Amniote level, says, can we really rule out that Kent got the slides mixed up, combining unrelated verses, and is too stupid to know it? I'll say this for Kent. He knows his slides pretty well. He seems to have them more or less memorized. So I do think we can probably rule that out. Because, look, it's not like I'm going to give Kent a lot of props. But I will say this. He knows his script inside and out. Why it's so hard to get him off of that script. So yeah, I do think we can probably rule that out. Savage Blueberry Chromosome Crumble Cobra for $4.99 says, I don't recall the Wizard of Oz being set in Prague. Okay, I did not see that coming, and that was great, and I really appreciate that. Jillian, have you considered Nuh-uh, Ren for $2 says, wish the kids a good first day of school, Dapper. Well, happy first day of school. That is awesome. I hope that you are having a good time over at school and that your teachers are not too mean, but are also, strict enough to keep everyone under control. And also, we just got the fancy avatar number.
Nice.
We're not quite at Bet Gets Free Pizza yet, but we're getting there. Renee Reptile Egg Crumble for $2 says, trying to push it over. Well, it's already over, although I recognize that there is, in fact, a delay, so, I get it. So thank you very much, everyone. All right, here we go. Here's a little bit more. Oh, wait, nope. We're set. We're at 8. It's 8 o'clock. Well, 8 o'clock my time.
Time to wrap up.
Time to wrap up. So, Bent, the bad news is I don't think you're getting pizza unless someone is extremely generous very soon. Yeah, we're about 30 away from Bent gets free pizza.
That's all right.
Yeah. But I will say we do have coming up right after this, if you are interested, on the Discord server that is just for supporters, so that's members and patrons, we're going to be watching 4 episodes of Power Rangers Operation Overdrive. We're going to be getting to right at that halfway point, episode 16, because it's a 32-episode season. And also, what is coming up soon? Ben, you got anything coming up on your channel that you want people to know about? Or just
I do want to take this time to give a thank you to the Holy Gosh Man and Carnival Frog for getting me items off of my Amazon wish list for my birthday last month.
Awesome.
Thank you both very much.
Awesome. Well, happy birthday, belated. Although I did say happy birthday on your birthday.
Yes, you did. I appreciate that. As far as my channel, no, there's nothing on my channel. Yeah, so.
Okay. So, what is coming up for Dapper Dino? So, we have Do the Hawaiian Islands Disprove the Old Earth coming on Thursday. That's in 2 days. That will be at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. If you're in a different time zone, do the math. Sorry, those are the only time zones I know. Well, okay, I also know Mountain Standard, but it's also the same as Pacific Daylight, so most of the year it's the same thing. So yeah, that'll be at noon Pacific. Basically, it is going to be the first part of a 2-part series where Jeffrey Tompkins, for some reason, is talking about erosion and geology, but also for $49.99, Roshina, I gotta read, ooh, Keller, I should remember that, says pizzas. So, Bent, guess what?
What?
You now are owed 1 free pizza and also probably some extra stuff.
Nice, awesome.
From me.
Thank you so much, chat.
So there we go. Bent gets free pizza.
Nice.
Let me know when you want that. I'm assuming it's probably not tonight.
It will not be tonight, no.
Okay. So let me know. I probably won't be tomorrow either, since I believe I'm cooking ribs tomorrow.
I think that's the plan, yeah.
So maybe Thursday.
Maybe.
Okay. So thank you so much, Roshina Keller, for your generosity. I really do appreciate it. Plus, honestly, this month has fewer streams than normal, so it's one of those months where a little bit tougher over here for my budget. So we will do the Tholian Dapper for the next one, and let's see. What else do we have coming up? So on Saturday, I'm going to be continuing the human evolution as told to us by Pete Greer, an elder at a church in Payson, Arizona, which it's not far by American standards from me, but it is extremely far away by, say, European standards from me. So do with that information what you will. I assume it's also probably not too far by like Australian standards, because like Australia is always far away from Australia. I feel like anytime you're in Australia, you're just really far away from the rest of Australia. Which I know is literally true, but like looking at a map, sure seems true. Especially since the only like cities that people know, like Perth and Melbourne, are like on opposite sides of the continent. So it's like, oof, that's quite a trip. Anyway, so that'll be on Saturday. Then next Tuesday will be Kent with Bent 145. So we will be back. Bent, also, you're going to be in a tutu because the fancy avatar number is the tutu number. So you gotta get that tutu out for next week, not right now. Also,
no problem.
and I'm going to double check my calendar to make sure I'm giving you guys the right date. Currently, the plan on the 20th at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, on Top Hats Off, my other channel, is we're going to be streaming the first episode of Star Trek Lexington, a Star Trek Let's Play featuring numerous people, some of whom are also YouTubers. We're going to have Chesh as Dr. Tragan. We're going to have, Jordan is going to be Captain Hawk. We've got FTFE from the channel FTFE, Craig. He is going to be Lieutenant Commander Shelby. We've also got people from my chat like Zeralon, Crusher the Croxagore is going to be there. We've got, Zarn Rankar is going to be there. We've got 7 players. There's going to be 7 main characters in this series. I've got art done. They're getting me, the last person is getting me their character art. So if you are at all interested in any of those people, or just in Star Trek Let's Play or Star Trek generally, please do check that out. That's Top Hats Off. You can find a link to that channel over on my channel page, or just search it out like Top Hats Off Star Trek Lexington. It's going to be Star Trek Adventures First Edition. It's going to be a lot of fun. Our first episode is going to be A World with a Bluer Sun. There will be mysteries, there will be aliens, there will be a brand new planet, all sorts of fun stuff, all on board the USS Lexington, NCC 1709, Constitution class. Yes, the same Lexington that was badly damaged in the M5 incident featuring Richard Daystrom from the original series, Season 1. All right, everybody, talk to you later. If you're interested, again, head over to the Discord. If you're not, I hope to see all of you on Thursday. Thank you so much for your generosity. We are out of here. Before you go, I'd like to just take a second to thank my channel members and patrons, especially those pledging $20 or above. Benthoven, Thilgavava, Tapioca Weasel, Whispers, Ellerhan Teller, Horseflesh, Ian Chen, Kelvin Brostick Van Manen, Landon Knoll, Mabdy Babdy, Sphincter of Doom, Vollus, North Texas Fossils, John Ackerman, Strawberry Vein, and Dr. Tapioca Weasel. It's because of my channel members and patrons that I'm able to do this show as I am now with 3 videos a week. Without them, I would be reduced to maybe 1 a week, or maybe even 1 every other week. So, if you like this channel and you'd like to support, there's a link to the Patreon in the description, and a join button below this video. All channel members and patrons get early access to videos, often many months in advance, as well as access to my super secret Discord server that's just for supporters and is a great way to contact me. Thanks for watching.